Picture this. It's the end of the semester at Westlake University, where the trees lining the campus walkways are just starting to change colors. The air has that distinct fall crispness that makes you want to wrap your hands around a warm coffee cup. That's exactly what I, Alex Mitchell, was doing at 6:30 a.m. on presentation day, nursing my third cup of coffee while reviewing our slides one last time. Our business communications final project was worth 40% of our grade, and I wasn't taking any chances. I've always been the planner in any group situation, color-coded notes, calendar reminders, the whole organizational package. My roommate jokes that I probably scheduled my first steps as a baby. But when you're juggling a double major in marketing and communications with a part-time job at the campus bookstore, being organized isn't just a personality trait, it's survival. Our professor, Dr. Winters, had assigned us to 4-person groups at the beginning of the semester for this massive presentation on communication strategies for a real local business. My group had been working with a struggling independent bookstore downtown. We'd spent weeks conducting market research, analyzing their customer communication, and developing a comprehensive rebrand strategy. The presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m., and we'd agreed to meet at 8:30 for a final run-through. By 7:15, I'd received check-in texts from Mia and Zach, the other 2 members of our group. But nothing from Jordan Chun, our 4th member, and the person responsible for finalizing the slide transitions and visual elements of our presentation. Jordan was, well, he was complicated. Brilliant when he applied himself, with this natural charisma that could win over any room, but also chronically late and seemingly allergic to setting alarms. I first met Jordan in our Intro to Public Relations class sophomore year. He'd stumbled in 15 minutes late on the first day, hair tousled, coffee in hand, apologizing profusely to the professor with such charm that instead of being annoyed, she actually laughed. That was Jordan's superpower. He could be frustratingly disorganized, but somehow make you smile about it. Over the past 2 years, we'd had several classes together, and I'd watched him ace presentations he'd prepared the night before while I'd spent weeks perfecting mine. When we were assigned to the same group for this project, I had mixed feelings. On one hand, Jordan's creativity and ability to think outside the box had already proven invaluable for our bookstore strategy. On the other hand, his casual relationship with deadlines had me constantly checking in and nudging him about his portions of the work. Let me explain why this particular morning had me so stressed. Dr. Winters was known for her strict punctuality policy. The classroom door locked exactly at the start of class, and if you weren't inside, you might as well not show up at all. Missing this presentation wasn't an option. Plus, we were presenting to not only our classmates, but also the owners of the bookstore who had agreed to implement our strategy. Real-world consequences were on the line. By 7:30, with still no word from Jordan, I sent another text. Hey, we're meeting in 1 hour. Everything okay? No response. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. That familiar mixture of frustration and concern started bubbling up. This was so typical Jordan, but also so infuriating given how much was riding on today. Meanwhile, across campus in his apartment, Jordan was experiencing what could only be described as a morning from hell. His phone had died overnight because he'd forgotten to plug it in. The backup alarm clock he'd specifically purchased for important days like this had somehow been set for 7 p.m. instead of 7 a.m. His roommate, who normally might have woken him, had left the previous day for a family emergency. Jordan finally stirred at 7:45 when the sunlight hit his face at just the right angle. For a moment, he enjoyed the peaceful feeling of waking naturally, stretching comfortably in his bed. Then his eyes landed on the digital clock on his nightstand, and that peaceful feeling shattered instantly. No, 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 he muttered, launching himself out of bed with such force that he nearly took his comforter with him. His heart was racing as he plugged in his dead phone, frantically brushed his teeth, while simultaneously trying to put on pants, and cursed himself for once again proving that Alex's concerns about his reliability were completely justified. As Jordan was having his morning meltdown, I was sitting in the library study room we'd reserved, watching the minutes tick by with increasing anxiety. Mia and Zach had arrived, and we were all exchanging worried glances as 8:30 came and went with no sign of Jordan. I knew we should have made a backup of his slides, Mia said, nervously tapping her pen against the table. What if he doesn't show up at all? He'll be here, I said with more confidence than I felt. but we should prepare for the worst. What exactly was he supposed to finalize last night? As Zach pulled up the most recent version of our presentation we had access to, I noticed several incomplete transitions, missing graphics, and placeholder text where Jordan was supposed to have inserted customer quotes from our research. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a matter of Jordan being late. Our presentation was incomplete. At 8:47, my phone finally buzzed with a text from Jordan. I am so sorry. Alarm didn't go off. Phone died. Just woke up. Working on slides now, but won't make the meeting. We'll send ASAP and meet you at class. I read the message aloud to Mia and Zach, who both groaned in unison. We can't present like this, Zach said, gesturing to the incomplete slides on his laptop. These transitions make no sense, and half the visual elements are missing. That's when I made a decision that would change everything. I'm going to go to his apartment, I announced, already packing up my things. I'll help him finish, and we'll meet you at class. Are you sure? Mia asked, looking skeptical. You could just tell him to email what he has, and we'll try to fix it ourselves. No, it'll be faster if I'm there with him, I insisted. He knows what he was planning for these sections. We'll get it done faster together. The truth was, I wasn't just thinking about efficiency. Despite all his flaws, Jordan had been working incredibly hard on this project. His insights about the bookstore's target demographic had completely shifted our strategy in a way that impressed even me. I couldn't let him fail now, not when we were so close to the finish line. I rushed across campus to Jordan's apartment building, texting him that I was on my way. By the time I arrived, slightly out of breath from speed walking uphill, Jordan had managed to shower and was sitting at his desk in a towel, hair still dripping, frantically working on his laptop. When he opened the door and saw me standing there, his expression was a mixture of relief and embarrassment. Alex, I am so sorry, he began, but I cut him off by walking past him into the apartment. Save it. We have exactly 1 hour to finish these slides and get to class. Put some clothes on, and let's get to work. Jordan disappeared into his bedroom and emerged moments later in jeans and a button-up shirt, still working on the buttons as he hurried back to his laptop. I've got the customer quotes inserted, he explained, but I'm still working on the transition animations and the final graphics for the social media strategy section. Show me what you have, I said, pulling up a chair next to him. Our shoulders touched as we both leaned in to look at the screen, and I caught the clean scent of his shampoo. For a brief moment, I was distracted by how good he smelled, but I quickly refocused on the task at hand. The problem is, I was planning to use this new animation software to create custom transitions between each section, Jordan explained, but there's no way I can finish that now. We'll have to use the basic PowerPoint transitions, which will be fine, I assured him. The content is what matters most. Let's focus on getting the graphics right and making sure all the information is there. We worked side by side, our fingers occasionally brushing as we both reached for the mouse or keyboard. Despite the stress of the situation, there was something oddly intimate about working together in his apartment, both of us intensely focused on the same goal. At 9:15, Jordan's roommate's cat jumped onto the desk, nearly knocking over Jordan's coffee mug. We both lunged to save it, our hands colliding in the process. We looked at each other and burst into laughter, the tension momentarily broken. I really am sorry about this, Jordan said more quietly once our laughter had subsided. I know how important this project is to you. It's important to all of us, I corrected him, including you. I've seen how much work you've put into the research and strategy. That's why I'm here, because I know you care about this as much as I do. Something shifted in Jordan's expression then, a softness I hadn't seen before. Thanks for believing that, he said. Most people just think I'm a flake. Oh, you are definitely a flake, I teased, turning back to the laptop. But you're a flake who does good work when it counts. By 9:30, we had managed to finalize all the slides, fix the transitions, and insert the missing graphics. Jordan quickly emailed the completed presentation to Mia, Zach, and himself as backup, while I packed up my things. We need to leave now if we're going to make it to class on time, I said, checking my watch anxiously. 1 second, Jordan replied, disappearing into his bedroom again. He returned moments later with a neatly pressed blazer, which he slipped on over his shirt. The transformation was immediate, from frazzled college student to polished professional. What do you think? He asked, doing a quick turn. Presentable enough for the bookstore owners? I allowed myself a moment to take in the full picture. Jordan's dark hair now dried and styled, the blazer fitting perfectly across his shoulders, a confident smile replacing the panic from earlier. You'll do. I said, ignoring the flutter in my stomach. The walk to the business building was a brisk one, with Jordan apologizing approximately 12 more times despite my insistence that it was fine. As we power walked, he explained his idea for the presentation's conclusion, a moment where we would reveal the before and after mock-ups of the bookstore's branding simultaneously for maximum impact. That's actually brilliant, I admitted as we approached the building. The visual contrast will really drive home how much more modern and appealing the new design is. See? This is why we work well together, Jordan said, holding the door open for me. You keep me on track, and I occasionally have good ideas. More than occasionally, I found myself saying. Your analysis of their customer base was what made this whole strategy work. Jordan looked genuinely surprised by the compliment. That means a lot coming from you, Alex. I know I don't always make the best impression with my time management challenges. We arrived at the classroom with 7 minutes to spare. Mia and Zach were already there, looking relieved to see us both. The presentation looks great, Mia whispered as we took our seats. Those graphics for the social media calendar are perfect. All Jordan, I said, nodding toward him. I just helped with the assembly. Dr. Winters arrived exactly at 10 a.m., as expected, followed by the owners of the bookstore, a middle-aged couple named David and Elaine who had been struggling to keep their business afloat in the digital age. They took seats at the back of the classroom as Dr. Winters called for the first group to present. 2 other groups presented before us, both with solid strategies, but nothing particularly innovative. When it was finally our turn, I felt the familiar flutter of presentation nerves, but also a strange new confidence. We had pulled this together against the odds, and somehow, that made me feel like we could handle anything. Jordan surprised me by taking the lead as we walked to the front of the room. Good morning, everyone. We're excited to share our communication strategy for Cornerstone Books today. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the incredible teamwork that went into this project, especially from my partner Alex here, who literally saved our presentation this morning when my alarm failed me. The class chuckled, and I felt my cheeks warm slightly at being singled out. But as our eyes met briefly, I saw something in Jordan's expression that made my embarrassment fade, genuine gratitude, and something else I couldn't quite identify. Our presentation flowed seamlessly from there. Mia covered the market analysis. Zach presented the competitive research. I explained our strategic recommendations, and Jordan brought it all home with the creative executions and implementation plan. His final reveal of the before and after branding received audible gasps from the class and visible emotion from Elaine, who reached for her husband's hand when she saw how we had honored the store's 30-year history while making it relevant for today's consumers. During the Q&A session, Jordan and I found ourselves naturally tag-teaming the responses, building on each other's points and seamlessly covering for any hesitations. It felt like we'd been presenting together for years rather than scrambling to finish slides just an hour earlier. When Dr. Winters finally said, "Excellent work, team," I felt a wave of relief and pride wash over me. We had done it, not just completed the assignment, but genuinely impressed our professor and potentially helped save a local business. As we returned to our seats, Jordan leaned over and whispered, "We need to celebrate. Coffee after class." I nodded, suddenly aware of how much I wanted to spend more time with him outside of this project. The remaining presentations passed in a blur as I found myself thinking about Jordan's invitation and what it might mean. When class ended, David and Elaine approached our group, both with tears in their eyes. "You young people have given us hope," Elaine said, clasping my hand between both of hers. "We've been considering closing the store, but your ideas, they make us believe we can make this work. We'd like to implement your strategy," David added. "Would you be interested in consulting with us as we roll it out? We can't pay much, but we'd be grateful for your continued guidance." The 4 of us exchanged surprised glances before Jordan stepped forward. "We would be honored," he said. "This project has meant a lot to all of us." After exchanging contact information with the bookstore owners and receiving congratulations from Dr. Winters, our group huddled together in the hallway, still processing what had just happened. "Did we just get our first client?" Zach asked incredulously. "I think we did," Mia replied, grinning. "Not bad for a class project." We agreed to meet the following week to discuss how to approach the consulting opportunity, and then Mia and Zach headed off to their next classes, leaving Jordan and me alone in the hallway. "So, coffee?" Jordan asked, suddenly seeming slightly nervous. Absolutely, I replied. I think we've earned it. We walked to the campus coffee shop in comfortable silence, both of us coming down from the adrenaline of the presentation. Once we had our drinks, an Americano for me and a chai latte for Jordan, we found a quiet corner table away from the main crowd. I want to thank you properly, Jordan said once we were seated. You had every right to be furious with me this morning, but instead, you showed up to help. That's not something I'm used to. What do you mean? I asked, genuinely curious. Jordan stared into his cup for a moment before answering. Most people in my life have pretty low expectations of me when it comes to responsibility. My parents, my ex, even most of my friends, they all just assume I'll mess up eventually. So they either take over completely or just write me off. That doesn't seem fair, I said, surprising myself with how protective I suddenly felt. You're not perfect with deadlines, sure, but you contribute in other ways that are just as valuable. That's what I've been trying to tell you, Jordan said, looking up with a small smile. You push me to be better, but you also see the good parts. You don't just dismiss me as a lost cause. Of course not, I replied. That would be a waste of your annoyingly brilliant creative mind. Jordan laughed, and I found myself noticing how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he was genuinely amused. Had I really never noticed that before? Can I ask you something? Jordan said, his tone turning more serious. Why did you really come to my apartment this morning? You could have just told me to email what I had and figured it out without me. I considered deflecting with a joke about not trusting him to finish on his own, but something in his expression made me want to be honest. Because I knew how much work you'd put into this project. I didn't want you to miss out on presenting it just because of one mistake. Jordan was quiet for a moment, studying my face as if looking for something. Alex, I need to tell you something, and it might make things weird, but after what you did for me today, I feel like I owe you honesty. My heart rate picked up inexplicably. Okay, I've had a crush on you since that PR class sophomore year, he said in a rush. I've always admired how put together and brilliant you are, and how you never seem to get flustered by anything. I was thrilled when we got assigned to this group project because it meant spending more time with you, but I was also terrified of disappointing you. I sat there, momentarily speechless, as my brain processed this revelation. Jordan Chun, charismatic, creative, could charm anyone. Jordan had a crush on me? Organized, always prepared, somewhat uptight me? You're not saying anything, Jordan said after a moment, looking increasingly uncomfortable. I've made it weird, haven't I? I'm sorry, we can just pretend I never. I like you too, I interrupted, the words tumbling out before I could overthink them. I think I have for a while, but I didn't really let myself acknowledge it because you seemed so, I don't know, effortlessly cool. Like you wouldn't be interested in someone who color codes their notes and sets 5 alarms for important days. Jordan's face broke into a grin so bright it was almost dazzling. Are you kidding? Those are exactly the things I like about you. You know who you are and what you want. You make plans and follow through. Do you know how attractive that is to someone who can barely remember to charge their phone? We both laughed, and suddenly the tension that had always existed between us transformed into something else, something exciting and full of possibility. So what happens now? I asked, feeling uncharacteristically uncertain about the next steps. Well, Jordan said, reaching across the table to take my hand. I think we've established that we work pretty well together under pressure. Maybe we could see how we do in less stressful circumstances? Dinner tomorrow night. I'd like that, I replied, feeling a warm flutter as his fingers intertwined with mine. And I promised to set at least 3 alarms to make sure I'm on time, he added with a wink. In the weeks that followed, Jordan and I navigated the transition from project partners to something more. We worked with Mia and Zach to help Cornerstone Books implement our strategy, watching with pride as their customer engagement increased and sales began to turn around. But we also spent evenings watching movies in Jordan's apartment, studying together in the library, and discovering all the ways we balanced each other out. Jordan helped me learn to be more flexible, to see the value in spontaneity and creative thinking. And I helped him develop systems that worked with his personality rather than against it, celebrating his progress rather than criticizing his setbacks. 3 months later, as we sat in Cornerstone Books for their reopening celebration, surrounded by community members browsing newly organized shelves and engaging with the interactive displays we had designed, Jordan leaned over and whispered, Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't missed my alarm that morning? I considered this for a moment. I think we would have gotten here eventually, I said. But I'm glad it happened the way it did. Me too, Jordan replied, squeezing my hand. Though maybe next time we have a big presentation, you should just stay over at my place. You know, as a precautionary measure. I laughed and leaned my head against his shoulder, marveling at how a missed alarm and a frantic morning had led to the most unexpected and wonderful relationship of my college experience. Sometimes the best connections happen when plans fall apart, forcing us to see people for who they really are, not just their mistakes or strengths, but the whole complicated, beautiful person underneath. As Jordan wrapped his arm around me and pressed a kiss to the top of my head, I made a mental note to thank his faulty alarm clock someday. Some wake-up calls, it turns out, are worth waiting for. Total _char_count, 18,753.